What's up, fucker?
Good morning, and how the hell are you?
I'm wonderful. How are you?
Pretty good.
Good.
Say, pretty good. Enjoying the heat out here, you know.
Dude, same. I'm so glad it's finally summertime.
I'm glad it's summertime, and then when I go outside, I'm like, yeah, fuck this, dude. Shit is hot.
I like it, though.
I like it in spurts. I have to hibernate for a few hours after I go outside.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not like a... I could see if I was a construction worker, somebody who had to work outside, I would hate it. But where I have AC inside, I'm like, no, summertime's great.
Yeah. I guess our job is, well, down on 6 and 7 is pretty brutal.
It gets toasty in every building.
Yeah.
And I've already had my fill of everybody complaining about the heat.
Yeah.
It's like, you know, we work in manufacturing, right? It gets hot in the summer.
The thing that
cold in
pisses
winter.
me off is when people complain that it's cold. I'm like, shut the fuck up. I'll bring an extra sweater for you tomorrow.
I complain that it's cold in the break room because every time I go to break, somebody turns the AC all the way down. It's like you could see your breath in there. And then you go back out to the heat and you're just uncomfortable.
So you get sweaty and go in there and get hypothermia in the break room?
I hate that.
Nice.
Yeah. And it's like I keep telling everybody, don't turn the AC all the way down. You're going to freeze up the
system.
Yeah. And then you'll have no AC at all.
Then it'll just be hot in here also.
Yeah. Just be reasonable, man. Put it at 65, leave it the fuck alone.
Yeah. A couple years ago, the AC went out in our break room, and so we were taking our breaks in the krill just because it was like a little bit cooler back
5
there.
degrees cooler.
It wasn't 110, it was like 100.
It's
so.
like you, in the break room, like, don't even run the fucking microwave.
Yeah.
It's hot in here. So, today we're going to talk about Appalachia.
Appalachia?
Appalachia.
Appalachia. Appalachia.
Appalachia.
Appalachia.
Appalachia.
However the fuck you say it, we're going to talk about those mountains on the east coast of the United States.
Yeah, it's a super long mountain range. Basically runs from the bottom of the country to the top of the country, all the way along the eastern seaboard.
Yeah.
And there's some weird shit going on there.
Real weird. Talking from like cryptids to witches,
ghosts, UFOs,
dogmen, feral people, disappearances, all that.
So I gotta say, it was hard to do research on this one.
Yeah.
Because there was so much information and so many different tales and all this folklore and everything that went into it, and there was just like an overload where I couldn't really focus on it.
Yeah.
in any like one direction.
I kept on getting like pigeonholed into one thing,
Dude,
and then
same.
just like that I'd chase that down a rabbit hole, and then it would kind of go for a while and then just peter out into like, well, where's the evidence of this? Like, I keep on hearing the same couple stories, or different versions of the same stories, but still fun. Still a fun chase.
It's fun to listen to a lot of stuff until I came across another guy's podcast, which it still counts as research. It's just somebody else did it, and I get to regurgitate it in my own way.
That's my favorite type, dude.
Yeah, because the guy who was talking about it, he was kind of entertaining and everything, but it's like, if I say it in my way, it's probably going to be funnier. No, in all honesty, I can't even remember the guy's podcast. He was pretty funny, but he would just like talk about everything that had to do with Appalachia, and I'm like, I don't care about all that.
Yeah.
But yeah, he read off this list of different like cryptids and creatures that have been spotted and seen and tales of, and I was like, yeah, I'm not writing any of that down.
Yeah, I was going to also, and then I saw the list and I was like, okay, I'll try to remember a few key ones like the Dogman and the Wampus Cat and the witches and
So there was 3 cryptids that really stood out to me. And 2 of them I don't want to go into too much because I feel like they kind of deserve their own episodes. But like, number 1 was Bigfoot.
Mm-hmm.
Number 2 was the Mothman.
Yeah.
And then number 3 was the sheep squatch.
The sheep? I didn't hear about that.
Oh, you
one.
didn't hear about sheep squatch?
No.
It's basically a Bigfoot mixed with a sheep.
That's tight.
When you see like the dramatic recreations and shit like that on different shows and all that, you're like, this is so dumb.
That sounds like one of those movies on Amazon Prime that you find.
Oh, dude, we could make a sheep squatch movie. Yes. Oh, also skinwalkers.
Oh yeah,
because there's a lot of.
Well, they call them. Well, I guess they do have skinwalkers, but they also have what is it called? Wendigo.
Wendigo, yeah.
Yeah. I don't know if that's the same kind of. I think that's something different than a skinwalker.
So Wendigo is, it's actually like Canadian folklore.
Yeah.
Where it's a monster, and he's afflicted with this desire to consume human flesh, and every time he consumes human flesh, he gets a little bit stronger. Mm. But he was once a man, and he was bitten by a Wendigo, and that's how they like pass the curse. That's the only way you can die if you are a Wendigo, is to give it to somebody else. Mm. So it's like an STD.
Yeah.
And yeah, so some folklore suggests it's just like one Wendigo out there just fucking people up, but then some of the other folklore suggests that's how they pass it along, and that's how that story has thrived for so long.
So it's like the movie Santa Claus. If you kill Santa Claus, you become Santa Claus?
Yes.
Yeah.
Happened for Tim Allen.
Yeah.
I saw it. Speaking of Santa Claus, side note, have you watched this movie called The Fat Man?
No.
Oh my god, you're in for a treat. So it's about Santa Claus, but Mel Gibson plays Santa Claus.
Really?
Yeah, I remember seeing the trailer for it years ago and going, oh my god, I gotta see this. It's so strange because like the kind of lore slowly unfolds. Like all the shit you know about Santa Claus plays out.
Yeah. But
none of it is what you expect. Like he lives in a small town in Alaska, and he's like immortal, but he can still be wounded and shit. You gotta watch it. It's really entertaining.
Is it like a comedy or a drama?
I would label it more drama, because you come to find out fairly early on in the movie, so there's no spoilers, but Santa Claus actually has like contracts with the government to keep delivering presents, and that they keep trying to use him to use his elves to manufacture weapons and stuff for the government, and he keeps saying no, but then he's like falling on hard times, and he's like, okay, I'll take the contract, and then there's a hitman that's trying to kill Santa, and it's crazy. It's bananas.
I wonder if John Wick is going to get involved in this whole situation.
Dude, that would have made that movie 1,000 times
John
cooler.
Wick 5.
The Hunt for Santa.
The Hunt for Christmas.
Put that under the tree.
Yes, yes. So yeah, I heard the tales of the Wendigo, which is a super cool looking cryptid. It's like a huge monster with antlers, like a 6 foot, 7 foot tall, big monster with like a rat face type looking. I don't know. Pretty cool, I would say.
There's a series of comics where Wolverine is tasked to hunt down the Wendigo.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and they're kind of like permanent enemies. So like when the Wendigo would pass to a new person, he would have to go hunt it down and try to kill it. But you can't actually kill it. Pretty fun. And I'm a huge nerd for Wolverine, so it just adds to that.
Yeah. Speaking of Wolverine, I saw a trailer for Deadpool and Wolverine.
Yes.
It looks pretty entertaining.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we're going to have to get a few of us together and go see that one.
Yeah, yeah. Can't take kids, so,
Oh, sad day.
Make that a bro date or something.
I get to go to the movies without my kid. Amazing. Yeah.
So, which one did you think was the most interesting then?
Honestly,
the most intriguing.
To me, is still Mothman. And there's a lot of back and forth stuff with the Mothman, but there's enough eyewitness testimony that seems valid to me, but then there's a lot of horseshit that goes with it.
Mm-hmm.
But the fact that, what was it, Lake Point, whatever that fucking town is in Appalachia.
Yeah.
So it's
which I didn't even know.
Yeah, it's part of it. It's just geographically, I'm not sure where it sits, but it's in there. And Mothman sightings have happened all the way up Appalachia.
Yeah.
Which is crazy to me. But it's also been seen in New York and in Chicago and so on and so forth.
Well, if it's a giant winged creature like reports say, then yeah, I don't know what would stop him from going all the way up and down that mountain range.
So what creeps me out about that story in particular is there have been multiple sightings of the Mothman right before something devastating happens.
Yeah.
So allegedly he was seen flying around in New York right before 9/11.
Really?
Yeah, allegedly. All I've heard from that is like secondhand stuff. Apparently there was pictures taken. I've never seen them.
Yeah.
But it's cool to think about.
Right.
But then you think about the bridge that collapsed in that small town where he was first spotted. It was said that he was spotted flying over the bridge, and then the bridge collapsed.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the guy who wrote the book, The Mothman Prophecies, he made that up. But people have perpetuated it so much that it seems like truth.
Interesting. Yeah. So in looking at stuff about the Mothman, he'd been seen in that area for a number of years, and then right before that bridge collapsed, there was like supposedly an increase in sightings all around the town there and on the outskirts of the town, and the bridge collapsed, and so it was. Now they have like a monument to Mothman there. That's like looks like a stainless steel statue. I don't know. Have you ever seen it?
I have.
Pictures of it?
There's actually a thing going on right now.
Where you stick like quarters in its butt.
Yeah. Where people will put panties on him and then stuff dollar bills down the panties too.
Yeah.
Like, that's hilarious.
Yeah. You're just pissing off Mothman, guys.
I mean, I wouldn't do it. I'm not superstitious, but I'm not gonna, test my luck on that one either.
Yeah. If there really is like a 6 foot tall winged moth faced man flying around, I want to steer clear of that guy.
Yeah, I want to stay on his good side. Unless he wants quarters in his butt.
Maybe he wants dollars in his panties.
Could be. Maybe he's like an interdimensional stripper.
Yeah.
And the Mothman himself perpetuated the idea that you need to put the dollars on his statue so he can come and collect them at night while everybody's asleep.
Yeah.
He's like a tooth fairy.
Have you ever seen... So there was a video on Nuke's Top 5. I want to say like a year or two ago. And it was this guy who's an urban explorer, one of the Urban X explorer guys, and he's exploring these drainage tunnels underneath the town or whatever, and he's walking through for miles, just going through this, and it's just almost like a man-made tunnel for the excess water to run off into the river's system or whatever, and he's walking through there, and the tunnel kind of splits. And so he walks past the split, looks down there, the right fork of it, doesn't see anything, keeps on walking, and then hears something like an echo coming from that split off, and so he walks back to it and looks down there, and he just sees it's like, as far as he can see until it's kind of dark, and it kind of curves around to the left, and it's dark back there, but you just see this set of glowing eyes like poking out from around the corner, and then they jump back behind the wall and then come back out and look at him and then jump back behind the wall. But you can't really see anything except for the eyes.
Yeah. I do recall that one, yeah.
And so that was one thing that they were saying was like accrediting to a possible Mothman sighting, because so then he actually, instead of running away like most videos people do, he goes up there to try to see what is up there, because he thinks it might be like a animal or something stuck down there. But
which is one of those golden Appalachia rules, is if you see something, don't walk toward it.
Yeah.
Which I thought was super interesting, that there is like a set of unspoken rules that go with it.
Right.
Like, don't whistle in the woods. If you hear your name, no you didn't.
Yeah.
If you see something, no you didn't. Keep your doors, windows, and shades closed at night, things like that. And it's kind of crazy that all these people have kind of generated all these unspoken rules because of all the shit that they've seen and heard and kind of gone through. Because there's just so many weird tales that come out of there.
Yeah. So mine, the one that I really chased down, that I thought was the most intriguing, that kind of never really went anywhere, was the feral people of Appalachia. So the story is that, like, during the Great Depression, times got tough down there, and so there was a group of people that just kind of went into the mountains and just started living off the land and kind of just went feral. And through like years and years of like generational inbreeding and stuff like that, they've kind of mutated to a point, kind of like, and there are really people in those backwoods that are like that, like kind of super inbred, but it's not a huge number. But supposedly these people are just wild, and there have been sightings of these people like running through the forest naked, and they're super furry or hairy because of they don't wear clothes, and so their hair is just going back to like caveman style, where you're just super hairy. I thought that was really interesting, just because I think that it could be possible that people just kind of go feral after a while of living wild like that, just revert back to like hunter-gatherer attacking.
Just to be almost Neanderthal-like.
Yeah.
You know, and that was the one story that I gave the most credence to. Because for one thing, you're talking about so much land, you know, hundreds of thousands of just acres of woods, dense woodland.
Yeah.
So it wouldn't be hard at all, even in this day and age, for, you know, let's say a family of 10 people to go out there and just disappear and never be seen again, and to go out and live very, not quite like nomadic, but just living off the land, foraging and things like that, and eventually regress to a feral state. And you could even perpetuate that of like, it could have been like a family of moonshiners that lived in the Smoky Mountains, you know, in the 1800s, just making moonshine and maybe some chemicals or something played a factor, and then like having that regression or causing some kind of mental break. Maybe they just drank too much moonshine.
Yeah.
And then slowly after inbreeding, because you don't get smarter from inbreeding. You only go backwards.
Yeah.
So, you know, generations upon generations of inbreeding have led to not quite a feral state, but almost like a sense of retardation.
Yeah.
So, to me, that's totally possible. And you come across feral people, they're going to do feral shit.
Yeah.
So, that one, that's like the only Appalachia story that I go, 100% believe it, without question.
Yeah. So I even saw, there's a documentary that I watched years ago about this family in West Virginia.
Mountain Mama?
Mountain Mama, take me home. Country road.
Country road.
But he comes across this family, and he does like an interview with all the people in this family, and it's like there's like 3 brothers and a couple of the sisters, but their parents were brother and sister, and like they all just had sex with each other. Like all the kids had sex with the parents, and the kids had sex with each other, but they're at a point where they're so inbred that, like, I think only 2 of the sisters are, and one of the brothers are verbal, so they can talk. One of the brothers just barks like a dog. And so he comes walking down the road, and the one brother's standing outside, and he's just like, starts barking at him. Really wild. And this is a real, like, documentary. I think it was with Vice.
I've seen a couple clips of it, but I haven't watched it all the way through.
Yeah, it's really wild. And he kind of goes and tries to talk to, all the people, and then he leaves, and then he goes back like a number of years later just to check on the family and see how they're doing and stuff like that. And same thing, they're just out in the woods with just the brothers and sisters that are still living like that. So just to see that regression in that short amount of time.
Yeah, you're talking 3 generations, at that point.
Yeah.
Because you had the parents and then the children and then the children after that. Now who's to say what the parents came from?
Right.
It
Right.
reminds me of that really fucked up episode of the X-Files where there was like 3 brothers and they were all super inbred and they were all mating with their mother, and then when a baby would come out they would kill the baby.
I didn't see that one.
Oh dude, it was so fucked up. I remember watching it as a kid going, holy shit, this is messed up. And I found out many years later as an adult that they actually pulled that episode off of TV and never aired it again because it was so messed up. And I've still yet to go back and watch it again because I'm like, nah, I'm good.
Yeah, I've seen The Hills Have Eyes.
Yeah, that's what I think about when I hear those feral people stories. And there have been some stories come out of people who get abducted off of the Appalachia Trail and say that they were held captive and they were sexually assaulted and all these things and they got away, but they couldn't give accurate descriptions of their captors because they're like, all we could see was just like a dark figure, because they would capture them at night and things like that, and they're already dirty and gross, so they kind of look like animals as it is. Right. So it's, I totally give that one credence.
Yeah. So I was chasing that for quite a while, just trying to see, and there's like videos of this guy that's he's got a YouTube channel, and that's kind of hunting for feral people of Appalachia. Appalachia. I'm trying to say it different.
Appalachia?
Yeah. And so I can't tell if like he's like Zach Bagoning it, or he's just creating stupid shit, or he's like really going out there and like hearing stuff and seeing bare footprints in the mud and throughout the mountains. But kind of a fun thing to follow.
Have you watched that one show? What is it called? Monster Hunter, Monster Men, something.
Monster Quest?
Maybe that's it. It's like it's a handful of dudes, and they try to set up these like elaborate traps and things like that. And they think they are like the Zach Bagans of cryptid hunters. Yeah,
and there's one guy that's like real fat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then they'll sit around and like
show called
watch their footage wearing
Mountain
lab
Monsters?
coats. Yeah, Mountain Monsters.
Yeah.
That's it. Yeah, and then it's so cringe because they like think that they're being super sciencey, and it's like all of this is chintzy as fuck. All of it.
Where it's like, man, the entertainment value is there for me.
In the same way it is for Ghost Adventures.
Right. where I know they're not going to catch a fucking thing, except for maybe one of their fellow investigators. But yeah, like I think that it seems like they're just out there because. So in Appalachia, it's like a rich history of like storytelling, and these stories being passed down from generation to generation. And they actually have like coffee shops where there's a storyteller there, and then they have like storytelling sessions where they tell these stories to whoever's in the coffee shop or whatever. So I think that it seems like that they're part of that folklore of storytelling, and they're just doing it in a different way, like putting it into a TV show where they're hunting down these cryptids and telling these stories through that. But yeah, they set up like elaborate like giant mouse traps type systems.
That's literally what it looks like. It's like some Wile E. Coyote shit all the time, and you watch it and you go, "Oh my god, I'm not even a scientist, and I know that's fucking dumb."
Right.
Let's see where it goes.
I got to see if they catch anything.
Have you ever heard of a comedian? His name is John Caparulo.
Yeah.
When he's doing that bit about watching TV, and he's like, "Then that fucking show about hunting Loch Ness gets me every time because it's just 4 dudes sitting in a boat going, yeah, he's not over here either."
Well, I watch it all the way through, you know.
I think you have to, and it's hard to make good television out of, you know, cryptid hunting or ghost hunting or anything that's paranormal or unproven, because it's like, it's hard to make a show where it's an hour long and you're hunting for these specific things, and then you find nothing, and then to get to the end of the episode and go, yeah, we didn't find shit.
Yeah.
Like, viewers tend to not like that sort of thing.
Right.
But that's where I kind of go, like, on our ghost hunting thing, where you kind of make up the difference by having that personality and having fun, and like showing that it doesn't have to be super serious.
Yeah.
It's something you do because you hope to catch something, but you also have to be objective and say, yeah, we didn't experience anything, or nothing happened.
Right.
But we hope you had some laughs.
Yeah. And that's like, I watch the BuzzFeed ghost hunting.
That's
now
my
they have
favorite.
Now they have their own series, Ghost Files, which I still love. Same dynamic. But it's like they hardly... I mean, every once in a while they'll catch a clip of something that they can't explain. And Shane usually like will still say, yeah, that's nothing.
Yeah.
And then Ryan will say, oh, that's definitely something that we can't explain, that's paranormal.
Yeah.
Which is fair. Like, there really is something there you can't explain. But most of their episodes end with them not catching a fucking thing, but it's hilarious.
Yeah.
And so I watch every single episode.
That's like the best ghost/cryptid show there is.
Yeah.
Because it's fun, it's entertaining, and it's objective.
Yeah, they're seriously doing the work, but not taking themselves so seriously that they're cheesy or like those guys in the Mountain Monsters. I think they're probably doing the same thing. They really want to go and explore the woods and see if there's anything out there, but to try to sell the show, they have to make it super dramatic that something is happening and they're on the verge of catching something, where it's like, no, just make it fucking entertaining.
Yeah.
And people will watch it.
Did you see the BuzzFeed Unsolved one about Bigfoot?
Yeah.
Where, I can't remember where they were, but it was somewhere...
It was like Northern California or Oregon or somewhere along Pacific Northwest.
That was a really good episode, because they were getting these first-hand tales from people who had these experiences, but then again, they went out into the woods and like stayed the night and everything, still found nothing, but you could tell even Shane was a little bit creeped out on that one.
Yeah.
Plus, you're in the fucking woods at night.
In the woods at night, and there's lots of bears in those woods.
Yeah. Which is arguably scarier than a sheep squatch. Because I know a bear will kill you.
I wonder if sheep squatch is like carnivore or... So, did you look into the sheep squatch at all?
Yeah. Most of what I found was conjecture or stories. And the one that stood out the most to me was, I can't remember what I watched it on, but these two young guys went on a hunt for this thing. And it was super cringe because of, for one, it's these two like hillbilly kids, and they think they're just going to go out and fucking murder this sheep squatch.
Yeah.
And like the first thing you see is like a slow-mo of them walking down the street. One of them's wearing a trench coat, by the way.
Scary.
And they're both carrying machetes. And I cannot explain how visibly hard I was cringing while watching this. Like, oh my god. And then they're talking about it, and I think it's either their mom or their grandma's like, them boys are going to go out, they're going to get that sheep squatch, they're going to kill it. Like, no, they're not. And they're loading up shotguns. I'm like, one of them is going to shoot the other one.
Yeah.
That's what's going to happen.
Yeah.
And it was like 45 minutes of build-up for them to go out into the woods for like a couple hours and then come back and be like, yeah, we didn't find it. This is so bad. A lot of it is tales of, I was driving down the road and something walked across the road in front of me and I saw it and this is what it looked like. And then there was a couple others where, like there was one story, the family is inside their house and they believe it's the sheep squatch. There's no like, they didn't even know what it was. They just knew something was outside and it was growling. And so the men of the family freaked out and they started grabbing shotguns and rifles and started shooting out of the windows from inside the house. And whatever it was, it ran off. So they grabbed the family and they put them in the car, drove to town, grabbed the cops. Cops came back. They found there was no signs of anything. There was no blood. There was no nothing. Which kind of makes me go, was there something there? Or did you guys just hit that moonshine a little hard?
Yeah.
And we're storytelling, you know. I'm going to go ahead and say that I think 90% of what goes on in Appalachia is just perpetuated folklore.
Yeah.
It's old grandma saying, you better go to bed and brush your teeth or the sheep squatch is going to get you. You know,
Yeah.
shit like that, where
Right.
it's not so much as bringing back stories and tales of things that have happened or things that people have experienced. It's just telling that same story over and over and using it more as like a deterrent tool. You know, like I said,
It's like urban legends.
yeah, urban legends. Make your kids behave or else this is going to happen, or
Like Krampus.
to keep those legends alive so that people go, I don't want to move anywhere near Appalachia.
Right.
You know, and so I think that's most of what happens down there.
Yeah. I agree. I think that's mostly what happens in most places. To say that there aren't, you know, I don't know how far these stories have been passed down, and it's like it probably starts in one place where, like, Appalachia is huge. I mean, it's the Appalachian Trail is like 2,100 miles.
Mm-hmm.
So it goes from like Georgia all the way to Canada, and it's one of the oldest mountain ranges in the world, and with super biodiversity.
Mm-hmm.
And so I mean, there's just a ton of different areas that are, you know, up near Canada. It's a lot more like the mountains here, where it's, you know, in the wintertime it's 20 feet of snow and you know, kind of rugged, and then down towards the south the mountains aren't as big, but it's still just such dense forests that you can get lost super easy.
Oh, yeah.
But in those same dense forests, it's hard to see something, to get a good view of something as you're walking through the woods. Like, if you see something 100 yards away, you're just catching glimpses of something moving through the woods. So, you know, somebody sees something going through there, and, you know, there's bears, there are mountain lions. There used to be a lot of mountain lions in that area, in those mountains. Wolves, coyotes, all kinds of, you know, deer. So you see something walking through there, and, you know, you tell a story about you seeing this big cat walking through the woods. And then you tell your kids that, be careful because there's big cats out there, you know, and then that next generation comes up, oh, you better be careful of this big cat that roams the woods. And then the next generation, there's a wampus cat that goes through the woods.
Well, that's all.
Eat your face.
That's all it takes is one person to embellish the story,
right,
and then perpetuate it, especially to small children, because they're going to grow up believing that's real.
Right.
And even when they get to adulthood, you could tell them, "Oh, I made all that up," and they're going to go, "No, that's real."
Yeah.
You know, because they believed it their whole life.
Right.
So, if you could know the truth about any one of those cryptids, or the ghosts, or the UFOs, or anything, which one would it be?
About the cryptids, or just any story there?
Any one of them.
I would probably want to know the truth about the moon-eyed people.
The moon-eyed people is a good one.
Yeah. Because I think that there's a lot of evidence of the moon-eyed people.
Mm-hmm.
Evidence, I say, for folklore, same type of shit.
Yeah.
But yeah, for those who don't know, the moon-eyed people were people that the Cherokee lived in that area, would talk about. It was a tribe of, I would say, Native Americans, but the Cherokee even tell that when the Cherokee arrived there, the moon-eyed people were already there. And so they were a race of people that had light skin, light-colored hair, and super light eyes, like blue or like silvery eyes, and they would only come out at night because the sun really bothered them. So in the lore, the Cherokee would fight with these moon-eyed people at nighttime, you know, off and on for hundreds of years or whatever it was, and finally attacked them during a full moon. Because they were so sensitive to the light, they couldn't, you know, even the full moon was too bright for the moon-eyed people. They were able to drive them out of the area, and the lore says that they moved west. The moon-eyed people moved west. And there's, like, different sites throughout that area, like West Virginia, Tennessee, Kentucky, of this civilization that was there, that looks a little bit more like a European style civilization, which there are historical stories about people like Welsh people coming in like 1100, the year 1100, into the Americas and settling in the Americas. And then some of the tribes had their language, some of the words were similar to ancient Welsh, and so I don't know, it kind of lends into that, like, did the Welsh come down there and like breed with the Indians, the natives there? And I don't know, I thought that was really intriguing, and I'd like to know the real history about those people.
So, when I first heard about the moon-eyed people and hearing that description, the first thing I thought about was when you talk about like alien folklore and UFO folklore, is the different races of aliens that are allegedly out there, and one of them is the Nordics.
The Nordics.
And they're described the exact same way, very pale skin, blonde hair, blue eyes, things like that. They literally look like ancient Nordics.
Yeah.
From description. I don't know if they really exist. I can't speculate on that. But that's where I kind of go, it's interesting that you have this race of people that matches that so easily, and you have hundreds and hundreds of UFO sightings in that same region. And you're even talking sightings where people describe a craft landed, somebody got out and communicated with whoever saw it telepathically and told them XYZ or whatever. But then you have this just one random tribe of people who at the time would kind of fit the bill because a lot of the settlers in Appalachia were Irish Scots. So from a genealogy standpoint, yes, you could have a good amount of people with, blonde hair and light skin and all that, but probably not as many as you'd think.
Yeah.
So it just seems to me that there is a parallel there that obviously without facts or evidence, you can't say one way or the other, but it just like the pieces fit on that one.
Yeah.
In my mind anyway.
Yeah. Also, I was watching one video that was talking about how supposedly the Moon-eyed people went west and kind of disappeared, but they think that they kind of just intermingled with other native tribes.
Mm-hmm.
And even now, like, I guess Native Americans and down into like South America have a higher rate of albinoism, and there's tribes down in the South America now that have like a crazy percentage of the population is albino. And they have videos of these tribes down there, and it's just like, yeah, the people are just 1 in 10 or something like that is an albino.
Wow.
Something like that.
That's a lot.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Because you think about how many albino people you've met in your life.
Yeah, Yeg.
You can't conflate albino with Nazi. It's not the same thing.
My bad.
Well, seriously though, it's probably what? You could probably count them on 1 or 2 hands, the amount of albino people you've met.
Yeah.
But,
was
so 1 in 10.
1, 2. So my uncle was married to a Navajo girl, and she has a sister that's albino, which is super weird because all of their family is like super Navajo looking.
Yeah.
And then they have this one sister that's just blonde, blue eyes. Looks just like him.
Super strange.
And she's just, super, super, super blonde and really blue eyes.
Well, it's kind of weird, too, because albinoism is because of recessive genes.
Yeah.
So where did that come from?
Yeah.
When you have a whole family that's just like devoutly Navajo looking, the dark skin, the jet black hair, that specific kind of upper cheek orientation, because they have a very distinct look.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, just here's one random albino.
Yeah.
So somewhere down the gene pool, there was something mixed in there.
Yeah. Yeah, I thought that was. Then I knew a kid that was an albino. When we lived in Florida, I don't know what he was, what their family's race or whatever it was, but it was one of my friends. His little brother was an albino, but I remember the kid was white, but his little brother was super albino to the point where he had pink eyes.
Yeah.
And so they wouldn't even let him outside.
No, he would just die.
Yeah,
he looked like a piece of bacon.
Yeah. Maybe he was a vampire. He'd go out at night. Little baby. I think when I was there, his little brother was like, I was about 7. Actually, maybe 8 or 9. And his little brother was like 3. Go into his house and just be terrified of his little pink-eyed brother walking around. He looked like a python.
I remember going to school with this one kid, and he was that same albino, so recessive, his eyes were pink. And I remember, because I was really young, I was probably only 6 or 7, and I remember seeing a rabbit that was one of those albino rabbits with the pink eyes.
Yeah.
And I remember asking the kid, "Are you a rabbit?" He's like, "What does that mean?" And of course, you're a kid. You don't think about how insensitive of a question that is. But I look back at it and I go, "Yeah, dude.
Valid question.
Yeah, I mean, no offense to anybody who's albino, none at all. But it's a strange thing that it's hard for us to wrap our minds around,
right?
Because it's so different and unique that you can't help but like conflate it to something else that's similar.
Yeah,
you're trying to draw parallels in your mind to make things make sense.
Right.
They still look
especially as a kid. Like,
yeah, but that kid still looked like a fucking rabbit. Especially
now,
because he
like
had
looking
super
back
fine
to it,
hair.
I think that the kid was like super cool looking. He just looked like a vampire or something.
Yeah,
which is pretty cool.
He looked like if a human molted.
Like the new skin or the old skin?
That's the new skin. It just has to like leather up a little bit. That's so terrible. So what's funny about the whole Native American thing, because there had been many different tribes of Native Americans in Appalachia seeds.
Mm-hmm.
So it's always so strange to me that these lands that have all these weird things going on are so directly tied to Native American tribes. And it doesn't matter which tribe, it's kind of all the same when it comes to the lore of these different things. And we've talked about another place that's directly parallel to that, Skinwalker Ranch.
Yeah.
Has these deep Native American ties, but has all this crazy shit going on, including Bigfoot, UFOs, portals, which, by the way, I was watching some stuff about portals in Appalachia. Happens there, too, apparently. So it's kind of weird to have this one huge landmass that has the exact same problems as this one tiny little area in northern Utah.
Yeah. Super
strange. And then even in Mount Shasta, a lot of the reports are the same shit.
Yeah.
Bigfoot, portals, UFOs,
Native
strange
Americans.
cryptids, Native Americans.
Kind of like makes you wonder if the natives were drawn to those areas or were kind of congregated around those areas because of the activity that was there. Like, or that was like if those areas are portals and there's these beings that are coming through there that may have been using. So kind of, if you look at like the Anunnaki stories,
mm-hmm.
like the Anunnaki supposedly came here, modified the being or the creatures that were here on Earth, the early humans, into being a working class species that would collect gold for them. But there are these beings that are using portals to transport into our dimension or to our planet, however you want to look at it. Were the people going there because they saw all this phenomenon there, or were the people going there because they were being collected by these other beings, kind of herded to this spot where they would have them do work for them? I don't know.
I've had that question on my mind a lot too, and then I started thinking about it more specifically of no matter what the reason is, if you were to take that away and then just ask why those specific people, why Native Americans, and the only thing I can like logically come up with is that Native Americans, more so than most other cultures in the world, they have more of an equilibrium with nature,
right?
And kind of being one with the planet, with flora and fauna and things like that. They're less inclined to be drawn to technology or anything like that. So they're kind of probably more open-minded to whatever it is that's happening. As for them being a workforce, I don't know if I can get along with that one, but I can definitely understand more of why you would pick them to communicate, especially with like some of the stories that come out of Skinwalker Ranch, where the older natives, you know, on the reservation have had contact with quote unquote star people, and they talk with them like they're old friends and things like that, versus like if you went to one of our elders, you know, like if you went to my grandpa as an alien, he's gonna flip the fuck out. You know what I mean? So, but you know, an old native grandpa's like, oh yeah, dude, me and fucking we're old friends. He visits like every solstice.
Yeah.
Yeah. Basically, if you're near native land, doesn't matter what tribe, there's some weird shit going on there.
Yeah.
That's why you never build a house on Indian burial ground.
Oh no.
Saw that in a movie.
Yeah. I've seen that in several movies. It's just, you don't even walk through them, dude.
No, just stay away.
Yeah. Yeah, dude. Was that Poltergeist?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can't remember what the reason was for the remake, but they changed it a little bit.
Yeah.
Oh, no, it was a cemetery, but it wasn't an Indian burial ground. Maybe
you moved the headstones, but you didn't move the bodies.
You assholes!
So, yeah, during my research for this episode, I came across a native guy that is into, like, paranormal shit. And, his name is Shen Chen. I think Shen Chen is the name of his YouTube channel.
Is he the guy who wears the bandana?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Have you seen any of his... Did you watch any of his videos?
Yeah, I watched one last night about skinwalkers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is it the one where he's talking, just standing there talking about it? Or is he at a table?
He's at a table.
Oh. So yeah, I watched one yesterday or the day before, where he's like standing out in the desert. I think it's with that one ghost hunter kid that like has long blonde hair. Always does a lot of shit with the twin paranormal guys.
Oh yeah.
I can't remember what his name is.
Yeah, he's one of those bullshit artists.
Yeah, yeah. He has some interesting... So the one that I watched, he was... So he's like a Native American... I'm assuming he's like a shaman type guy. He's Navajo. And he's... In the one that I watched, he was just telling stories of like... different encounters he's had with different Native American spirits, like the Skinwalkers and stuff like that. But pretty cool experiences that he's had. I would recommend watching those videos if you're into that shit. Shen Chen,
Yeah.
Shenchen.
So what I took away from that one was, for one, it was really nice that you actually had an actual Native American openly talking about skinwalkers,
Right.
which most of them don't do.
Right. Especially in the native tongue, like...
Yeah. And him talking about not exactly the science behind it, but kind of the way it works. And kind of talking about how some of, like, skinwalkers could travel, or they could settle in different lands and things like that, because it was mostly kind of a Western thing for skinwalkers, but they're showing up more and more, especially in Appalachia. Appalachia. That's pretty accurate.
Yeah.
Because part of my research led me into like the people who live in that area. It is very impoverished. It is very hillbilly.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot of drugs.
Yep.
Hey, but if I lived in a place where there was a sheep squatch running around, I'd be high all the time.
Yeah,
too.
I would not go to sleep, dude.
No.
What's good for staying awake? Crack.
It's like
meth.
You know why I take meth? I got to stay awake to keep an eye on the sheep squatch and steel catalytic converters. doing the Lord's work.
Did you ever watch that Ginseng Hunters?
No. Are they hunting for the root?
Yeah.
You have to hunt for it?
In Appalachia. But I guess that's a big thing there. Ginseng grows pretty wild out there. And so it's basically like, it was kind of like the show Moonshiners, but it's about ginseng. And so they would follow these crackheads around that were out there in the woods digging for ginseng. I swear that's all it was like freaking crackheads.
Oh my god. Spencer, look at the size of this one.
That's the size of my thumb.
Bet we can get an eighth out of this one.
Oh, I'm not going to sleep for 2 weeks now.
You know what boggles me, though, is there's still a lot of people out there illegally making moonshine. Just out there in the woods. And Appalachia. How come they're not coming out and talking about all this other shit?
Yeah, I mean, I guess if I was doing something like that, I probably wouldn't. If I saw some shit, I probably wouldn't come out and say that I saw it, and then be like, "What were you doing out there?" I was just camping.
I was hunting.
I was hunting. So I mean, like we said, the Appalachian wilderness is just millions of square miles of, well, hundreds of thousands of square miles of, maybe millions, I don't know. Millions of acres. We'll say millions of acres.
It's a lot.
I mean, the mountains go across 13 states in the United States and through Canada, but officially end in some island off the coast of Canada.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of wilderness up there. So yeah, I mean, if you're moonshining out in the middle of nowhere, and there are actually stories of moonshiners that say they run into like Sasquatch or dogmen or some of these other Wampus cat, some of the other cryptids that they see. And there's supposed videos of like dogmen on the internet if you care to look for it.
I have to watch all of that with a skeptical eye.
Oh yeah,
every bit of it.
Yeah,
and it's too easy to just go, "Holy shit! They caught a video of the Sasquatch." Did they though? And I would hate to take away from anybody who's actually caught video or photographic evidence, because I'm sure it's out there. I would even be willing to bet that there's a decent amount of the stuff that I've seen that is actually real. Mm-hmm. There's no way for me to know. It's just kind of my belief. But 90% of videos out there, they're bullshit. They're fake.
Yeah.
So it's easy for me to just go like, nah, that ain't real.
I think one of the most interesting videos I've seen of like a Bigfoot cryptid type video was a video that this lady had, and she was, I can't remember if she was hunting or just hiking, but she comes around the corner and like looks down this, she hears something down in this, just down kind of a trail, and so she has her GoPro or whatever with her, and she looks down and you see kind of like this furry creature that's standing there, and it's tall, and but all of a sudden it just kind of shrinks down and then goes almost like the Predator, where it's just like you can't really see it, but you can see that there's something there moving, but it's just see-through almost, camouflage. And then she just turns around and runs away because it's scary looking, but it looked like it was about 7 feet tall and then just like shrinks down to about 3 feet and kind of goes camouflage.
Oh, that's creepy.
Like just like the Predator almost. And so she just turns around and runs away. And it seems like a super legit video, where she wasn't. She doesn't have any other videos like that on her YouTube channel or whatever she's posted, anything like that. It's the only thing that she's ever recorded like that. But it's nothing that I could compare or describe as anything else other than paranormal. But yeah, the Dogman videos that I was watching were really, like, you just see like shadows moving in the woods, and it's like, how do you know that's a dog? It could be just birds flying around in the trees.
Yeah. The ones that I try to give credit to is the people who are at like their homesteads on the border of the woods, and it's late, and they start hearing like growls and snarls and things like that, and I try to be objective about it and say that's probably just some asshole who knows you're filming and is like, oh, I'm going to give them a show.
Yeah. And
they're out in the woods going, ah, you know. But there is a few of them that have caught me off guard, and there's like there's one couple. I think she's a native woman and he's a white guy, and they live on their homestead. They live pretty much off the grid, and they live like right at the tree line, and their whole channel is like living the homestead life, you know, growing their own food and hunting and processing meat, and how they kind of live their life. And then they have one video where they're growing through their garden and like harvesting their garden, and you just hear and all these growls and snarls and yells and things like that coming out of the woods, and they both look genuinely terrified, and they're just like, fuck it, we'll harvest tomorrow. And then they go inside.
Yeah.
So videos like that, I'm like, okay, I'm going to give you a lot more credence, because either you were genuinely terrified or you deserve an Oscar.
Yeah.
And you live way off grid. You live way far away from everybody. So it's not like your neighbor is seeing that you're filming a video and is like, oh, I'm going to go fuck with him.
Right.
So it's some of those, for sure, you get me. But some of the other channels that you watch and they post like all of their shit's paranormal, or it's all cryptids, like, it's horse shit.
Yeah. And like, you would assume that they're living there and have heard noises in the woods, and they, you know, can kind of identify animals by,
for sure,
how they sound. And,
especially if you have to hunt for your own meat,
right.
You're gonna know.
Yeah, you know what a bear sounds like. You know what and that's what one of the guys I was watching yesterday. The guy that's like hunting for feral people. He's talking about how he's like, yeah, I spend a lot of time in the woods, and you know, I know the sound of, you know, what a deer sounds like. You know, the noises that the deer will make, and different noises that a bear will make. He's like, I can identify the way that they breathe, like, you know, and the way that they walk. You can, you know, if you listen to it a lot, if you hear it a lot, you can kind of identify these noises. So to have somebody on video that's reacting to a sound they are unfamiliar with, that's, I mean, I think that gives a lot of credit to,
for sure,
authenticity.
Especially when these sounds are deafeningly loud.
Yeah.
When it's like louder than what the average human's vocal cords are even capable of.
Right.
And some people can yell really loud. But can you snarl really loud? No, not really. You can't push enough air to do that.
You have to have major lung capacity for that most humans just don't have.
No.
So, unless it's like a screamo rocker out in the woods doing that.
The question I have for that guy who hunts the feral peoples, well, for one, let me ask, is he solo, or does he have a camera crew?
He's solo.
What are you going to do if you run into a family of them?
Yeah. So there's one video that he actually, like, he stops and he's riding like an e-bike through the woods, just so he can get a little deeper into the woods quicker. And he stops along this trail because he sees bare footprints in the mud next to the trail. And so, like, he stops, and he's, like, recording it, and he's measuring his foot to the size of the bear foot, and it's a lot smaller than his foot. Kind of just to show that this wasn't me. I'm not, I'm not just making bear footprints so that I can film it. And he's, like, talking about it, and then he hears, it almost sounds like a fucking deaf person. Yeah. Out, not too far off the trail. And he genuinely just gets fucking terrified. You can see it in his face, like, what the fuck was that? And he's like, I gotta get the fuck out of here. And so he's trying to pack up his fucking e-bike with all of his camera equipment that he pulled out to film the shit that he's doing right there as quickly as possible. And like, on his way out, his gimbal on his little GoPro thing breaks, and so it's like just recording, flopping around, recording the ground as he's hightailing it out of there. But again, it's like, you could have had somebody else with you, and you're just keeping them off camera. But I like to side on the. I look at it as skeptical, but I also like to believe what these people are trying to throw out there. It was entertaining.
No, I'm on the same page. Always take it for the entertainment value it is. I'm highly skeptical. For as interested as I am in anything that has to do with paranormal or aliens, conspiracy, all that, very skeptical.
Yeah.
But that's the purpose of making those videos, of watching those videos, of having these conversations, is because you're kind of in search for the answers to it.
Yeah.
For me personally, it's better if somebody else gets the answers, puts it on YouTube, so I could just talk about it.
Yeah.
I'm never in danger.
Well, he talks about that. He's like, I've done quite a few of these videos where I come out in search of these feral people, not really thinking about the consequences if I actually find them. And that moment right there was kind of the realization of, like, there might be actually things out here, people out here that I don't want to run into. And
that gives him more credence to me.
Yeah. And but there are a lot of stories of people on the Appalachian Trail that go missing, and then they, sometimes they'll find them where they got off the trail and got lost and succumbed to the elements. And then there's also a handful of people that are murdered on the trail. Just people and their unsolved murders that go unsolved forever, just because who knows why and who did it. Could it be these feral people, or could it just be some fucking psychopath meth head in the fucking woods just murdering people? I don't know.
Just getting fucking ripped on ginseng and stealing people's shit.
Making fucking meth out of lithium batteries and shit.
Yeah, that's always one of the big things that I think about, is the people who get ripped off the trail or lose their way on the trail, and they end up sexually assaulted or murdered or like violently beaten but left alive. And it's crazy how much shit goes on like that, but it's not worthy of an investigation.
Yeah.
There's certain places, like, I looked it up, Zion's, the national park in southern Utah. People do go missing there, but it's usually because they wandered off the trail and their bodies get found later and things like that, or they fell down a rock face. It's a pretty commonplace thing. It's not like it happens every single day, but it happens enough that there's kind of a protocol for it and an investigation that goes with it. So it's almost like there is a follow-up to that.
Right.
But on Appalachian Trail, doesn't seem to be. It's almost like the local authorities go, yep, that's what you get for walking down the Appalachian Trail. And there doesn't seem to be anything. I'm sure there's some investigation, but it's like there's no more fail-safes put in place. There's no more sense of, okay, we got to figure out what's actually happening to these people so we can stop it from happening some more.
Right.
And it's super strange to me because we have the technology to be able to figure these things out. I'm sorry, if you have a C-130, which the government has a shitload of them, you can literally do flybys overhead at night with thermal imaging and see what's actually in the fucking woods.
Yeah.
You can figure these things out. You can place dozens and dozens, if not hundreds, of trail cams and catch stuff, or, you know, catch evidence, but it's just putting the funding and the people on the job to get it done.
Right.
Which leads me to believe that it's just another one of those, and I hate to sound like the tinfoil hat guy, it's just another government conspiracy. Surely they know what's going on. They're just like, who cares?
Yeah. And that's the theory that... So there's a series called The Missing 411. I don't know if you've ever looked at that.
I think I've watched it, but I have seen it on...
But there's, different so it has to do a lot with, like, people that go missing in national parks all across the world.
Mm-hmm.
But, like, there are certain episodes that focus, and the guy, like, writes books about the Missing 411 and does YouTube videos. But there are specific ones that are focused on, like, the Appalachian Trail and people that go missing there under super weird circumstances. But they do, they do put out search parties, and the normal protocol for, like, a missing person in the woods, where they gather up park rangers and
mm-hmm.
cops and firefighters and volunteers. One of the first major lost person events like that actually happened along the Appalachian Trail, where there was a kid that was like, I think he was like 6 or 7 years old, that went missing. He was with his family, and there was a place that they had gone camping over the years several times. They go camping in the same spot all the time. And one of the kids they were playing with a bunch of other kids, and they were going on the trail, hiking the trail, and the kids kept on running ahead and, like, hiding. And then when the adults and the rest of the party would come through, they would jump out and scare them.
Mm-hmm.
Try to jump out and scare them. Typical kid shit. So as they're doing that, one of the kids ends up getting lost. And this is back in, like, the 50s or something like that. 40s maybe. And one of the kids ends up getting lost. And so they look for him for a few hours, notify the park rangers notify the police department, and so they put together this search, and they ended up getting like 1,700 people
mm-hmm.
in this giant search party to go and look for this kid. And it's the first time they've ever organized something like this, like a giant search party. It turns out that they think that they just had too many people out there
mm-hmm.
searching, that it just, like, covered any tracks or covered anything that they could have possibly found to try to track and find this kid. They didn't end up finding him. I think maybe they found his shirt or something a couple of years later. Maybe some bones, but they're not entirely sure if it's
mm-hmm.
him.
Well, now he's just a feral person now.
Yeah.
He's just adopted.
Lives in the trees.
They're in the trees, man.
But yeah, there's a lot of stories like that where people just go missing, and they're found, a lot of the times found not far off the trail, maybe a mile or two off the trail.
Yeah.
Where they just got lost and couldn't find their way back to the trail.
Which is crazy to me, because I was watching this video about this one gal, I think her name is Georgia or something like that. It was kind of a weird mystery, but she had gotten off the trail, and she called her husband and left a message on his voicemail saying, "I'm lost, blah, blah, blah." And she's like, "I'm just going to hunker down here. I'm going to camp here until I'm found." And she ended up staying at the site where she was camping for 26 days before she died. And I never did find out how exactly she died. I assume from elements or starvation or whatever.
Yeah.
She was 2 miles from the trail.
Yeah.
And then I go, if you're seriously going to go into the Appalachian Mountains to hike, you should probably take a compass.
Yeah. So, I also saw that story, and it was one of the stories that I watched, and it turns out she was from, like, Texas or Arizona. Her husband had died the year before, and so she was, like, going out to kind of, like, reinvent or unite herself with the nature, and
Mm-hmm.
but she was like fucking 60.
Yeah.
And she started, most people start the Appalachian Trail down in like Georgia,
Mm-hmm.
and kind of work their way up into Maine, where the Appalachian Trail ends inside in the United States in Maine, in this
Mm-hmm.
certain area. And that's like the end of the trail, the last 100 miles. There's nothing for 100 miles. There's no places to stop and like there's no towns, there's no
Mm-hmm.
nothing. Like most of the way through the Appalachian Trails, every like 50 or 60 miles you can head off into a town, resupply. But there's this one section that's the last 100 miles is the most treacherous and wild and overgrown section of the trail, and that's where she started. So she's not a very experienced hiker. She's like 60 years old. She's from Texas, so she doesn't really know the terrain and the woods up there. And she only brought beef jerky as food to last this the first 100 miles.
Oh, Lord.
And she got lost in the first 100 miles in the most rugged terrain out there.
See, all of that was
trail.
just disaster.
Yeah, and so
one bad choice after another.
She gets lost, and she had tried to so when they finally found her camp 2 years later after she had gone missing, she kept a journal, and when they found her camp was pretty tidy. Like, she had kept her camp pretty tidy all the way until she died.
Mm-hmm.
When they found her, she had one empty water bottle and one full water bottle, so she died of probably starvation.
Mm-hmm.
And not too far, maybe a couple 100 yards away from her, was a big open clearing, like in the woods, where if she'd set up there, they probably would have found her from, searching from the air.
Yeah.
But all the trees around her camp were scorched. Like, she had tried to start them on fire, but they wouldn't burn because everything there was so damp.
Yeah.
So she couldn't get the green trees that are around her to catch on fire to set a big blaze so that, they could find her.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of that was like just her overestimating her own skills and not being prepared enough to go into these really super remote areas of those woods where it sucks that it's kind of like...
Yeah, it's a sad story.
Yeah.
It really is, but self-inflicted wounds be self-inflicted wounds.
Yeah.
I mean, I wouldn't be capable of doing that with those supplies.
Right.
Like, it would already be hard enough if I was properly supplied.
Yeah.
And I'm way less than 60, so that's
and
a
most
tough
people
call.
that go through there start that section of the hike off with about 50 pounds of gear.
Yeah.
Food and water, and all the provision, tent and sleeping bag, and you have to carry all that shit for the 100 miles it's going to take. I mean, if you hike 10, 15 miles a day, it's still going to take 10 to 15 days probably to hike that 100 miles.
And you're not hiking at night either.
Right.
You're getting a good 8 to 10 hours in during the day, and then you're done.
Yeah. As far as you can go with 50 pounds of gear on your back at 60 years old, I mean...
Sounds like she packed a small backpack.
Yeah, and she was alone. Which is just really not... And it said that there's a trail marker at the front that says all these things that there's no provisions for 100 miles. You shouldn't be hiking alone. You should have all the gear that you're going to need for severe cold, because like it can drop down to like below low 20s at night.
Yeah.
Because you're such high elevation.
See, what sucks is I only like saw that in a TikTok, so I only got like the soundbite version of it.
Oh yeah.
So I didn't know all that.
Yeah.
But
really tragic story, but like, was she really like? I don't know. It seems like she was kind of. Maybe she was just. That was her way of leaving. I don't know.
Possibly could have been. Wouldn't have mattered because the sheep squatch would have got her anyway.
Right. Or the Wendigo, I guess. She's that high.
Yeah.
I mean,
right next to the
north.
Canadian border.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know what I also like is the ghost stories that come out of there, especially in the southernmost region. It's like the ghost stories of Civil War soldiers and things like that. Those are always so entertaining to me.
Yeah.
Because there's no way to prove or disprove it, especially the ones that took place in the 50s or whatever, where like cameras and shit like that were not a real thing. And it was a very faux pas subject to talk about, because it's only been in like the last 20, 30 years where I think more people talk openly about ghosts and paranormal and things like that. But back in those days, it was like, no, they'll throw you in the loony bin.
Yeah.
But to hear those stories come out, like this one kid was going through the woods and he saw a man leaning up against a tree, and he was bleeding. He's holding his stomach, and he's telling the kid, "Hey, I need help." And the kid panics, runs into town, grabs like 4 or 5 dudes, runs back to the same spot. There's nobody there. There's no blood. There's no trace. There's no footprints. No nothing. And so they're all mad at the kid. And he's like, "No, I swear I saw a guy, and this is what he was dressed as." And he was dressed as a rebel soldier. And they're like, "That's impossible." And then there's other stories, especially in some of the homesteads and old hospitals and things like that around Appalachia that served during Civil War. Suddenly, I'm totally just retarded and I can't talk. Yeah, around the Civil War, all these places that were used in the war as infirmaries and things like that, where you see these ghosts. And I think it's kind of not quite perpetuated by the area, but I think the area has an effect on paranormal activity itself.
Yeah.
Because when you talk about a place that supposedly has portals or ruptures in time-space or all these other crazy things that happen, it's not outside the realm of possibility to believe it affects paranormal activity.
Yeah.
In the same way it does at Skinwalker Ranch or at Mount Shasta.
Yeah. Yeah, and it is really interesting that again, going back to like the stories being passed down from generation to generation, like old ghost stories or old, cryptid stories, but to hear these stories coming out now and trying to make sense of them, or trying to work the embellishments off of the stories and come down to the root stories. Like, there are a lot of those, like Civil War, and I mean, it's not far-fetched to think about that. There's gotta be, the Civil War was fucking brutal, man. Like,
it's terrible.
How many people died on, in these fields where, people lived. And I guess that happens all throughout the world, but that's really the major conflict that has happened here in technically our own backyard, in their own backyards, literally. But yeah, to think that there aren't spirits that still walk through those woods and haunt those areas, I definitely believe those stories of them being, highly traumatic deaths, and maybe they don't even know that they're dead yet. They're still just trying to find their way out of the woods.
As skeptical as I'm on Ghost itself, I do believe that if I was to put a label on that problem, just like what you just said, they don't even know that they're dead yet.
Yeah.
So you can imagine having been in the Civil War, and you were killed in 1863, and here it is, 2024, and you're still wandering through those woods just trying to find your way out. That sounds like hell to me.
Yeah.
And then you got to watch all these crazy cryptids just running around.
Imagine being a ghost walking through the woods and seeing the cryptids. And you're like terrified. So you're screaming and you sound like a deaf guy and some guy on a bike. You don't even know what it is.
That's what it is. We figured it out. It's not a feral person. It was a ghost.
Yep. Civil War ghost. Nailed it.
Nailed it. Case closed,
next
boys.
Mystery. Come on, Scoob. Let's go.
Unmasked the culprit.
Yeah. I watched, there's this, what are they called? This paranormal group. I think their show is called Haunted Towns or something like that. But they go through a lot of those old towns back east. A lot of them that were major cities during the Civil War. And they go into places that were there and still are there as like stores and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
And do paranormal investigations in these places. And they seem like they get a lot of cool evidence, but it's all on like audio shit and
Yeah.
Stuff like that that's highly debatable for scientific proof. But it seems like they're having a good time and they believe the evidence. So
I think that having a good time is the most important aspect of any kind of investigation into the unknown. If you're not enjoying yourself, why are you doing it?
Yeah.
But yeah, evidence is a loosely based term.
Right.
Especially if it's on TV. YouTube has a little bit more credence to me because, especially for the people who make that kind of content, whether it's ghosts or cryptids or whatever it is, and those people aren't getting paid to do it, they're doing it simply because they enjoy doing it. I give them a little bit more credit. But when you're paid by a network, and you know how networks are, they're shiesty.
Right.
In fact, I actually blame the network for ruining Ghost Adventures, because even what's his name, the one who left the show, was it Aaron? No, not Aaron.
Yeah, I know who you're talking about.
Yeah, when he left the show, and he was talking about how much bullshit it is, he's like, we would go into these places and do our overnight investigation, send all of our footage in, they would review it and say nothing happened, go back and make something happen.
Yeah.
He's like, and then we would go in and film again a second night, and we would just make shit up.
Yeah.
So that's where I feel like that show went really downhill, was more because of the network.
Right.
But Zach Bagans is also terrible.
So, did you ever see the very first ghost hunt those guys went on? The Ghost Adventure team guys? It was like I want to say it was like a documentary, and it was like an hour, almost like a movie.
Yeah, I don't remember it very vividly, but I know I watched it. And thinking about it now, especially knowing what I know, that was actually pretty sincere and genuine.
Yeah.
It wasn't this over-bloated thing that they do now.
Yeah. So if anybody hasn't seen it out there, I can't remember if it was even called Ghost Adventures or what they have it labeled on. But I remember watching it years ago, and they go to this, I think the place that they went now is torn down. I think it was in Silver City, and it was a hotel. It was a hotel back in the early 1800s or mid 1800s, and was Silver City was kind of a boom town for like prospectors and shit like that. In this hotel, I guess it's where the Washoe Club is.
Yeah,
it's famous like paranormal hotspot. Right next door was this hotel. I can't remember what the name of the hotel was. But they go there and it's like an overnight investigation, and they have the person who is the owner of the place lock them into the building, and so they're just investigating, and they have the doors locked so that nobody else can come in while they're in there. And they end up going down into this basement, the basement part of the hotel, and it's kind of like it's falling apart. It's been, uninhabited for decades.
Mm-hmm.
And there's just like boards and like bricks that have fallen down, just laying on the ground. And as they turn the corner, they see something fly off the ground, and it ends up being a brick. And so they get scared, and then they look back over there to where they saw it, and then one of the 2x4s like lifts off the floor and like flies across the room.
Mm-hmm.
And then they run, and the doors are locked, so they can't get out. So they have to they end up jumping out of one of the windows. So it was really like intriguing. Like there wasn't anything like that on TV or like.
Yeah.
This was before even like taps, ghost hunters was even a thing. I mean, there was people kind of making documentary shows about ghost hunting, kind of like around there. But for me, that was one of the big ones that really got me hooked on like Ghost Adventures, and then throughout the years, just watching them get progressively more and more like out there, just like
cringe.
Yeah,
well,
just tell me if there's something there. If there's not, cool. I don't care.
I think I just solved it though. We should send the Ghost Adventures guys into Appalachia. They'll solve all of it. They'll figure it out.
Yeah.
And they'll catch all the evidence.
Move over, Mountain Monster Men.
Dude, team up.
Collab.
Collab! Yeah, I do think, because the ghost hunting thing is still thriving on YouTube, but on TV it's just not as popular. And I think it's largely because it's watered down, because everybody's got a camera on them at all times.
Yeah.
So the internet's just littered with user-created content with that. So you don't need the personalities anymore.
Right.
But I do think cryptid hunting is probably like the next gen of that. And I do think in the future we'll see more stuff like that come out of, especially Appalachia.
Mm-hmm.
Where people are going to go into the woods more and investigate that stuff more, especially where you have such this like huge platter of different things that you can search for in that area, where this one guy is hunting for feral people, and then this one guy is doing Mothman, and this one guy is doing Bigfoot, and then this team over here is doing the Civil War ghosts and things like that, where it's like there's so much out there to create content with that I really think eventually that's going to be very heavily exploited.
Yeah, for sure. And I'll watch it for sure. It's going to be, just like that Mountain Monsters thing, I knew they were never going to catch like a Sasquatch or a Dogman, but I've watched almost every single episode, I think, just because it's funny.
It's entertaining for sure.
It's entertaining. But yeah, to the point where like I probably would have watched that. And a lot of those shows I like to watch just because I like the history. A lot of times they'll have like a backstory and a history of the town, and like the showing pictures of like what the town used to be. And if you know anything about that area in West Virginia, Kentucky, Tennessee area, where moonshiners, and it's all coal country. And after the coal companies kind of shut down, a lot of those towns they're just ghost towns now.
Yeah.
And I mean, there's houses and cities that just nobody lives in anymore in that area. So a big aspect for me is like the history side, and so I'll watch it just for that aspect. I mean, I'm at a certain age where history is super intriguing to me.
Yeah.
Like one of the rabbit holes I went down yesterday was like this guy that was going through the towns just talking to locals and seeing what, how long ago was it that it was a bustling town, and these locals talking about the coal companies that were there in the turn of the century, early 30s, 40s, 50s, and how the towns were like towns with like tens of thousands of people there, have maybe a couple hundred people there that still live in the area that are just eking by like, odd jobs and tearing out copper from old buildings and shit like that.
Well, it's hillbilly ghetto.
Oh yeah, but he was like, yeah, this house right here, and it was like some of them are like the mansions, air quotations, of the bosses that were in charge of the oil company, that they're, big houses, probably a 3,000 square foot home, and they're selling for like $100,000 just because nobody wants to buy them because there's nothing in the town.
Yeah.
So right now, I guess it's kind of a thing where people are buying them and turning them into Airbnbs and like doing like ATV tours through the Appalachian trails and shit like
genius.
that. Right now, and that's kind of like the trend that's picking up right now is people that are doing that. But like some of the people were talking about how the coal industries ran their operations, where they would have the people that worked in the mines. The way that they would pay these people is through script. They wouldn't pay them with like money. They'd pay them with script. And it was their own money that they printed from the coal industry. The coal company would print their own money, give it to the people, and they would spend it at the company store. And so that's the only place that they could spend their money was at the company store. And so like the coal companies owned these people, like straight up owned them like slaves. They lived in housing that was provided by the coal company. And if, say, there's a family there, and the man worked for the coal company, if the man died, then the wife would have 7 days to remarry somebody that works for the coal company, or they would take all their shit out of the house and drop it off at the city limit.
Jesus
and
Christ.
Just, you're on your own now.
That's fucking awful.
Yeah, so I mean, all these towns are just fucking devastated from the coal moving out of there, the coal industries moving out of there, and like the way that they set up, how people would get paid through the coal company to only spend their money through the coal company. They couldn't like set up savings or anything like that.
Yeah,
so,
when
like,
you don't have actual money to put into an account, like you're completely dependent on them.
Right.
That's disgusting.
So yeah, a lot of these towns that just after the coal companies moved out, the people that were living there that chose to stay there kind of just started doing whatever the fuck they could to make money here and there, and
That's sad. That's when you're like, dude, I hope a cryptid gets me. This sucks.
Maybe if they hunt a cryptid and find it, they could get paid for the footage.
Dude. When you were talking about the houses there and people renting them out as Airbnb, I thought, how cool would it be? Buy one of those houses, rent it out as an Airbnb, but give special discounts to like paranormal cryptid hunters and things like that. Give them a discount as long as they give you some clout on their channel.
Or just do like a Airbnb specified on cryptid hunting.
There you go, dude. Business venture.
Appalachian Cryptids.
Appalachian Cryptids.
Come stay with us.
Hosted by Piss. Paranormal Investigation Super Squad.
Become a member of PISS.
Honorary only. Yeah, it's a lot of interesting stuff there.
A lot of interesting stuff.
It's definitely one that, anytime I see anything paranormal in some location, I go, man, I want to go there.
Yeah.
That's one place I'm like, I don't think I would go out of my way to go there.
So I've been to North Carolina and through Georgia and the southern end of that, Appalachia. And it's fucking beautiful.
Oh, it's gorgeous.
It is. I mean, so we went there up through South Carolina, up to North Carolina to visit a family friend when I was younger. On one of the times where, so we lived in Florida, but we drove from Salt Lake to Florida probably 3 or 4 times, like all the way across the country.
That sounds miserable.
I actually thought it was pretty cool, but I was young. I was like 7, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
I think the last time we went was probably I was 11 or 12, and I really thought it was cool just to see all the different parts of the country. Like, but I was used to hear the mountains.
Mm-hmm.
You look at the mountains, and they're fucking big, jaggedy, rocky mountains.
Mm-hmm.
And going there and then talking about their mountains, and you're like, where? Those hills over there?
Those are foothills at best.
I know that they get a little bit taller up north towards Canada, but like coming from here and looking at their mountains, it's all forested, yeah, and I know that when you get inside there, it's super dense.
Oh, yeah.
Some parts are like rainforest, like what do they call it? Not like a rainforest where you think of like the Amazon rainforest, but like a rainforest in the sense like the Pacific Northwest type rainforest, where everything is green and you can't see more than 50 feet in front of you because there's too many trees. But it is a beautiful place, but also, I mean, there's reason to be afraid of the woods there, and and to have all these mysterious happenings is, I don't doubt that most of them stem from something that was seen and couldn't be described.
I agree, and so when I lived in Missouri, there's a lot of woodland,
Mm-hmm.
but it wasn't like the densely packed woodland of Appalachia. It was like your visibility was at least 100 feet versus like I've been to Georgia once. We flew into Atlanta and we drove a couple hours, and we stayed at this like little kind of cutout area, and it had some cabins and a little tennis court. Quaint little place. It was
Mm-hmm.
nice, but you could see the woods just past that, and they're way more densely populated than what's in the Midwest.
Yeah.
And I agree, you could definitely like lose visibility really fast because as many trees as there are, and like the dense vegetation and everything, you're not moving very far very fast. You can't see very far. When it's dark, it's fucking dark.
Yeah.
It's so at least in Missouri, when there was moonlight, it would cut through the trees because they were not so densely packed together. But this, I could see like you'd be lucky to see 5 feet in front of you.
Right.
And that's on a full moon night.
Yeah.
And you're talking like the southernmost point of Appalachia would barely even kind of touch into that area that I was in.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's beautiful. It's just green and lush and super dense woods, and
Mm-hmm.
it looks so amazing. But then I go, I don't want to live here. This sucks.
Yeah. It's like, watch that movie, or even like fucking The Patriot, or like The Last of the Mohicans, where they're running through the forest. That's those super dense fern, old growth trees.
Yeah.
Like dense forests, and they are dark and they are intimidating.
Yeah, where it's so dense you couldn't throw a handball 15 feet without it hitting something.
Yeah. It's kind of like, you've been to the Pacific Northwest where all the redwood trees are, like in the redwood forests.
I haven't.
The trees are so tall and the canopies are so big that no matter what time of day, it's dark on the ground, and the ferns grow 5-6 feet tall. So I mean, it's just, I couldn't imagine trying to walk through there, not on a trail or not on a road, and try to keep my bearings. Like,
no. Well,
I would definitely tell my kids scary stories about staying out of the woods just to keep them safe. Like,
see, just like they've been doing in Appalachia for,
Yeah.
I do agree that there are things that are in the woods. It's just logical, because that's the only place you could still hide. If you were some kind of mythical creature or whatever, you're not going to go stand at the border of the tree line right next to town. You're going to stay in the thick, and you're going to stay as far away as you can. And that's where, when people talk about, oh, Bigfoot can't be real, bullshit. He's got a million places to hide.
Yeah.
You know how hard it would be to find one, like, small family of Bigfoot in all of Appalachia? And now start throwing in the northernmost region of the United States and the southern region of Canada. Like, that's all fucking woodland.
Yeah.
And it's all thick and it's all dense. Like, you could easily hide in there and never be found.
Well, you even think about, like, the hikers and stuff that do go missing. They are trying to be found, and there are people, thousands of people at one time looking for these people in an area that they know that they're at, and they still can't find them.
Exactly.
So trying to find something like a Sasquatch or a Bigfoot or a Wendigo that is good at hiding and can survive and does survive in those areas, like trying to find those things, it's probably not going to happen if you're looking for it. Especially
if they've learned to burrow or cave dwell, or like that story you were telling earlier about the guy who's down in the sewer system, where nobody wants to go because it's gross. Like, you could easily disappear and never be found. You'd only have to come out for food source or curiosity, things like that.
Also, like that area, the Appalachian area, is like, there are so many caves and underground tunnels that just connect.
Tons of structures.
Tons and tons of structures. Miles and miles everywhere throughout that whole area.
Plus you have the abandoned coal mines.
There's definitely... If I was a Sasquatch, I'd probably hang out there. A little, easy pickings.
For sure.
Lots of fruit trees and fucking nuts and berries. And
there's always some asshole teenagers looking for a cool place to drink beer.
Random ass hikers along the Appalachian Trail just to pick off one by one.
Yeah. A 6-year-old woman here or there who's only packed beef jerky.
Maybe that was the reason. Fucking beef jerky, dude.
Yeah.
What is it? Jack Link's?
Jack Link, the Sasquatch brand.
Yeah.
Well, that was good. I think we'll close that one out. I think let's get some final thoughts. My final thought is I do think most of those stories are just perpetuated folklore.
Yeah.
There is some shit going on, but I think so many people have bought into the folklore so much that they'll just keep that wheel a turning.
Yeah.
And again, I do believe part of that is like, if you keep these scary stories going, people won't want to come there. They won't want to come bother your quaint little town or your nice little village that you live in. So housing prices stay low, and there's still a reasonable amount of jobs and this and that and the other, and they try to keep old school America as old school as possible.
Yeah.
So it makes sense to me.
Yeah, I agree. I think that the telephone game has been played through generations and generations. I don't dismiss like the the sightings of things that people can't explain, but at the same time, like, just because you see something you can't explain doesn't mean that it's like a Wendigo or a, you caught a glimpse of something that you can't explain. Just needs to be looked into further.
Yeah, it's just because you can't explain it doesn't mean it's unexplainable.
Right.
That's really what it comes down to.
Right. So yeah, I mean, not dismissing that there could be a possible reason for the mountain monster hunter team to be out there until they catch something. Yeah, I mean, they're cool stories.
Well, also consider the source of where the story comes from.
Yeah.
If the tale of the Wendigo is told by a guy who only has 6 teeth in his head, I'm not likely to buy it.
I tend to like stories from people that only have 6 teeth because they got a plethora of them. They have more stories than they have teeth.
They're entertaining, I won't deny it. But
tall tales.
He's like, so I was outside cutting off a catalytic converter off of this Cadillac.
That's a believable story.
And then this Bigfoot just walked by and he's like, hey, how's it going? I was like, good, you?
Every cryptid story is grounded in truth.
Well, you got to have some truth to sell the lie. All right.
Agree.
All right, that was good. Okay, I love you. Bye.
Bye.